A few days ago, I checked my bank when doing some internet banking and noticed because I'd made a mistake, I'd overdrawn a bank account by about $200. Okay, I thought, well, I've made a mistake, so I correctly fixed it by transferring some money from another bank account to that particular bank account, and so it wasn't overdrawn. I let it go for a day, and then I decided to ring the bank to find out if I was going to be charged an overdrawn fee or any interest on the overdrawn account, because I've had this instance happen to me once before. So first thing I did is ring the bank, and I thought, because it had happened before, I'd mentioned to the bank that I didn't ever want to be going overdrawn. I asked them not to allow it to be overdrawn. There's some complications to that, which I'll talk about in a minute. But first thing I did is thought, so this doesn't happen again, I'll record the conversation. So when I got onto the bank, they said their normal thing. It was a bit of a delay getting onto them. They said, rightio, they normally, the banks come up, and most organisations come up and say, you're recording this for training and quality and other purposes. So when the person came on the phone, I said to them, just like you, I want to record this, so I'm just letting you know I'm recording this. The first thing they said was, you can't do that. If you're going to do that, we'll have to end this conversation right now. I said, what do you mean? I don't understand. They said, we have some sort of policy or some such thing that says you're not allowed to record the conversation. And I said, doesn't seem right that you can do it, but I'm not allowed to do it. And anyway, I said, okay, well, that's it. So I said, okay, I'll hang up and I'll ring back again and I'll record the conversation and won't tell you I'm recording the conversation. And the person said, if you do that, I'm making a note on the file and we'll record the fact that you're doing that, so the other person that talks to you will know that's happening as well. So I did ring back and spoke to somebody else and started a recording and told them my issues with the overdrawn account, and I'll discuss that at the end here. But then partway through they transferred me to someone else, and then they transferred me to somebody else, and then the person asked me, am I recording the conversation? I said, yes, I am. And they said, we can't talk to you anymore. And I said, well, how come? And they said, same reason, it's our policy or some such thing like that. So I said, you realise it's quite legal to record a telephone conversation in Queensland, provided the other person is being recorded as well. And then he said something about privacy, and I said, nothing to do with privacy. I'm the one that's recording the conversation. As far as the privacy is concerned, I'm using it for myself. And then he also said something to the effect that we won't be knowing what you're using it for. But it's interesting that at the beginning they say it's for educational and quality and other purposes. So anyway, to go a little bit more onto why I'm allowed to record the conversation. I do appreciate that the bank can make their own rules as to what they want to do in that respect of recording. So if I want to be a customer, I have to abide by their rules. So a bank didn't allow me or didn't want me to record the conversation I had with them, even though they were recording their end of the conversation. I pointed out to them that it is quite legal in Queensland to record a conversation that is done with your part of the conversation. For example, in this page here, in Legal Aid Queensland, they actually go on to talk about, and once again you should see your own legal advice in relation to this, recording private conversations. In Queensland, it is not, I emphasise, not illegal to simply record a conversation you're involved in, either over the phone or face-to-face, without the consent of the other people involved in the conversation. But there are restrictions on what you can do with the recording. It is illegal to record private conversations that you're not involved in. In other words, get legal advice. So in other words, you can't just listen in on somebody else's conversation that you're not part of and record it. But you can record a conversation where you're part of that conversation. However, there are restrictions in terms of publishing or communicating recordings of a conversation. Even if you're involved in a conversation that was legally recorded, it is still illegal to communicate the conversation or publish it without the permission of the other people involved in the conversation, with some exceptions. Don't know what the exceptions are. However, you may be able to use it as evidence in court proceedings. So it's illegal to publish or communicate a private conversation that was not listened to or recorded, that was listened to or recorded illegally, and these conversations may not be used in court proceedings. Once again, get legal advice. Just to go a little bit further with that, we go to this particular one here. This is an article by a firm of solicitors. Hope these solicitors are not going to sue me for using their web page. But basically, it talks about, am I allowed to secretly record someone? Yes, you can, right? I'll put a link to this so people can read this themselves. Can I distribute the recordings? The only reasons you can distribute the recordings is in legal proceedings or only to the extent reasonably necessary to protect one's lawful interests, whatever that means. In other words, private recordings cannot be distributed without a specific legal basis for doing so. It also talks about telephone calls and communications devices. Basically, this one says that you can record a telephone conversation but with your party of, but you shouldn't actually be connecting into the telephone itself. So you shouldn't have some device physically connected to the telephone. You're better off having an external device like recording it on a separate recorder or recording it via a mobile phone. But it also talks about, somewhere back here, recording telephone conversations. What about a mobile phone clippings that allow recordings? It basically says that that's okay. So that's enough about that. More about the bank a little bit later on. So for that reason, I'm not going to name the bank or put the recording here because I might get into trouble. The important thing is, why don't the bank want me recording the conversations? The reason I wanted to record the conversation was so that I had proof that I told the bank that I didn't want to overdraw my account, which I told them once before, but that didn't happen. Now, more about the bank and why I was overdrawn. Apparently, in their wisdom, the bank, and I'm not saying the name of the bank, decided to put something on their website so that you could have the facility to overdraw. But the default they made was that you were able to overdraw the account. But I wasn't informed of that. I wasn't informed of that at all. So as a consequence, when I made a mistake, I expected, as it says on their website, if there's not enough money in the account, they may not pay the bill. I always thought they do not pay the bill, but they may not pay the bill. I would have liked that happen rather than having a situation where if I hadn't have known about that, I would have got a bank overdrawn fee. So this particular bank allows anybody to overdraw their account, or seems anybody, unless you actually go online and tell them not to overdraw the account. So just letting everybody know that. And that bank doesn't like people recording the conversations. So don't tell them that you're recording the conversations and they won't know. I'd also like to know if anybody else has had similar experiences with their bank. It would be interesting to know which banks do have that policy and which banks don't.